Joining me now is Lindsay Moran. She's a former CIA operative. Dun, 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 dun. She also did one of my favorite interviews ever at TYT Interviews. You should check that out. And she has now moved from the CIA to the EIA. A little bit more dun 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 dun. So welcome back, Lindsay. How you doing?
Thank you. Great to see you. We meet again.
That's right. Great to see you as well. The sound effects are gratis. Okay. So before we talk about what the EIA is and how you're doing some covert work again, but for the good guys, for progressives, I want to talk to you about Trump because obviously, given your background in the CIA, I couldn't imagine a better source to talk to on a day like today. First of all, how long has the deep state been planning to get rid of Trump?
I so wish that were happening.
Yeah, I know, right?
I so wish I could tell you that it were imminent. I've checked with colleagues back at the agency. I've said, come on, there's got to be a plan going on over there. Please tell me there is, but I don't have a need to know anymore.
Yeah, and alas, there obviously isn't. If they were such a powerful deep state and they didn't want Trump, why didn't they do something before the election? Right. Anyway.
Very good question.
Yes, and as we talked about in our last interview, there's a lot of bureaucracy now at the CIA. It's a lot less Mission Impossible and James Bond than you would imagine. But you did have those great stories about honey traps, etc. So now,
and we saw one emerge today.
Yeah, perhaps so. So let's talk about a couple of those things. So, what's your take on Trump's reaction to Putin? The press conference, what appears to the naked eye to be him constantly saying that the U.S. government is wrong and the Russian government is right. It seems unbelievable. But what do you make of it?
Well, I've said from the get-go, what we've been watching unfold before our eyes is rather extraordinary. Vladimir Putin is a seasoned KGB officer, and what we've seen happen before our very eyes is basically the recruitment of the American president and the administration. I would classify Donald Trump as what we would call in the intelligence business a soft target. He's not a hard target. A hard target is something like Chinese or North Korean, where you're going to have to work for years to be able to recruit that kind of person. But Donald Trump displays all of his vulnerabilities and all of his motivations on his sleeve. And I think that it was very easy for Putin and for Russian intelligence to see, oh, wow, we've got a live one here. And this is not going to be that difficult. But it's been extraordinary and incredibly disheartening to see it happen.
So, Lindsay, do you think Donald Trump is an asset for the Russian government?
I would say for all intents and purposes. I mean, what we're seeing here is a president who has thrown the entire American intelligence community under the bus before the global stage. It's really unprecedented and unheard of. Even if Trump had suspicions or misgivings or thoughts that the American intelligence community was not right, even if he had those ideas, that's the kind of thing you address behind closed doors, not at a press conference before the global stage. And I mean, I sort of wonder, is Putin in a state of disbelief himself at how easily this administration has been manipulated?
Let me ask it in a different way too. Because people say, hey, look, you can't know what's in his mind and what his motivations are, et cetera. But if you had an asset and you were Russia, is this exactly what you would want him to say?
This is exactly the position that you would want him to be in. I mean, essentially what I feel like is Russia has been playing the long game. They've been playing chess. I used to say they've been playing chess while we've been playing checkers. But at this point, it appears they've been playing chess while we've been playing tiddlywinks. And Donald Trump in the White House is checkmate, period. Full stop.
Yeah, it is really, really disconcerting. How concerned are you about the midterm elections? Because Dan Coats, the director of national intelligence, keeps saying, no, we're under attack right now. and we're worried about the integrity of the voting in midterm elections?
I think it's deeply troubling. I mean, I think I'm worried not just about the midterm elections, but I'm worried about the state of this country long term. One thing that's been really disheartening to me is how effectively Trump and Russian intelligence and Moscow has divided and conquered the American public in a very skillful way. They've turned the meddling, the election meddling, into what most people perceive as a partisan issue. And it's not a partisan issue, it's an issue of national security.
Yeah. All right, before we run out of time, I want to talk about your new work at EIA. So
that's the good stuff.
Yes, that's right. So first of all, tell us what it is.
Okay, sure. So the Environmental Investigation Agency is not a government agency. It's actually an NGO. I was really looking to make a change where I was looking to take my skills as a former operative and some of my background in media and to channel that into something for the global good. You know, one of the reasons I was drawn to the CIA in the first place was I wanted to fight the good fight. I believed in the higher cause, and quickly became disillusioned with the agency. And then as I've matured and realized that the greatest threat, not just to the United States, but to humanity, is climate change. Climate change is a game changer, a threat multiplier in so many ways. And that as a global citizen, I'm more interested in going after the bad guys who are destroying our planet. And there are a lot of them out there. EIA is a really unique organization in that it employs a number of different methods to include undercover investigations and operations, which is, of course, my background, to collect intelligence on environmental criminals, whether that be wildlife traffickers, poachers, illegal loggers. So it was a perfect place for me to land. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm working for an organization that is exceptionally competent, that is actually making tangible changes, and that is doing so in spite of and in the wake of a very, I would say, negative consequences within this country in terms of the attitude towards climate change and towards environmental threats.
So that sounds super fun. How do you do the undercover work in this context?
I could tell you that, but then I would have to kill you.
Here we are again. I don't know how many times you've threatened to kill me, Lindsay.
But I will say this: it's not unlike tactics that the Central Intelligence Agency uses. I mean, essentially, we're using the same methods that places like the CIA use, which is going in and developing sources and collecting intelligence, and then working with law enforcement, trying to figure out who the criminals are, what they're doing, and working with law enforcement to bring those people to justice.
That's amazing. So can you give us a sense of some of the projects that you guys have had success in?
Okay, so we just, in a nutshell, solved the biggest environmental crime mystery of our time. I won't get into the weeds of the science of it, but suffice it to say, there was a study that came out in Nature magazine a couple months ago that basically said or showed that there was a big spike in what's called CFC-11, which is a chemical that has been internationally banned. We at EIA, when we read that study, realized that we had a hunch that this might be going on in China. We did some investigations, asked some questions, and within a matter of weeks had traced this spike in CFC-11, which destroys the ozone layer, to the foam blowing industry in China. So huge story, huge success for EIA. And hopefully there will be change now. I mean, the Chinese delegation to the Montreal Protocol is very proactive in trying to make sure that China abides by all the rules, and we provided them the intelligence to put an end to this illegal production of CFC-11. I've become an expert on things I never thought I would be an expert on in a very short period of time.
But look, if you guys put an end to that helps the whole planet. I mean, So that's a hell of a job. That's a great job to have.
Well, one thing I've realized is that environmental crime and crimes against the planet are directly linked to my bailiwick, which is national security. As I said, when you have scarcity of resources, that leads to terrorist groups, that leads to unrest. Those are exactly the things that I was fighting against when I worked for the CIA, albeit I felt less effectively so.
So now that you guys have already finished that mission, can you tell us a little bit about how you discovered that it was coming from China and uncover that one, or is that still secret?
We have our sources and methods. But no, we ask some questions. We ask the right questions, and the same way that you get more bees with honey is something I always used to say about operational work at the CIA, honeypots. I will say this: we did not use honeypots to gather that information.
Okay, that would have been interesting.
But we don't go in necessarily and steal secrets so much as make friends and cultivate sources and try to gather that intelligence that will get us the answers. And then we take that to law enforcement. EIA is not a government organization. It's an NGO. It's a small NGO. Tiny, in fact, but it packs an enormous global punch.
Right. In a sense, you're creating a friendly environment for those folks to come forward. Okay, I want everybody to have the website EIA-global.org. EIA-global.org. Lindsay Moran, always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Cenk.